शुक्लां भरतरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करभावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्ज सम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாபிவ சம்பிருக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தயே ஜகதः பிதரௌ வந்தே பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வரௌ. ஸ்ரீ பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வராभ्यां நமः। कोमलं कूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि आर्तान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी द्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्णात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഈതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പീരേണ്ടാത്തോറും രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ Krishna Hare Jaya Krishna Hare. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so let's do a quick review of 30 and 31 today. So Anita and Kritika, can you do one each?
Yes, sure, sir. Sure. Can I go 30?
Yeah.
Can I go 30?
Yeah, go ahead, Kritika. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Dasakam 30. Vamana Avatara. Chakrena samyati hato bibalirmahatma shukrena jivitatanuf कृतुवर्तिदोष्मा विक्रान्तिमान् भयनिलीन सुरां त्रिलोकीं चक्रे वसेश तव चक्रमुखातभीतः पुत्रार्थे ददिदीर्विषण्णा तं काश्यपं निजपतिं शरणं प्रपन्ना त्वत्पूजनं तदुतिदं हि पयोव्रताख्यं सा त्वादसाहमचरत्वयि भक्तिपूर्णा.
Kritika, the first line, it's easy to say Vashat Aditir. Okay. Yeah, keep continuing.
तस्यावतौ त्वयि नीलिनमतेरमुष्यः स्यामाश्चतुर्भुज वपुः स्वयमाविरासीः नम्रां च तामिह भवत्तनयो भवेयं गोप्यं मतीक्षणमिति प्रलपन्नयासिः त्वं काश्यपे तपसि सन्निददत् तदानीं प्राप्तोऽसि गर्भमदितेः प्रणुतो वितात्रा प्रासूद च प्रकटवैष्णवदिव्यरूपं सा त्वादशी श्रवणपुण्यतिने भवन्दं पुण्याश्रमं तमपि वर्षति पुष्पवर्षैः हर्षाकुले सुरगणे कृतदूर्यघोषे पत्वाञ्जलिं जय जयोदि नुतः पितृभ्यां त्वं दक्षिणे पडुतमं वडुरूपमादाह.
Third line, Jaya Jayeti.
Jaya Jayeti.
Yeah.
Okay. तावत् प्रजापतिमुखै रूपनीयमौञ्जी दण्डाजिनाक्षवलयादिविरर्च्यमानः देदीप्यमानवपुरीशकृताग्निकार्यः त्वं प्रास्थिता बलिगृहं बृहदाश्वमेधम् प्रकृताश्वमेधं गात्रेण पावि महिमोचितगौरवं प्राक् व्याव्रन्वदेव धरणीं चलयन्नयासिः छत्रं परेष्मदिरणार्तव निवादतानो दण्डं च दानव जनेश विवसन्निदातुम्.
Oh, the third line, Paroshmati. You said Pareshmati. Third line,
Paroshmati.
Yeah.
तां नर्मदोत्तरतडे हयमेधशालाम् आशे दुषित्वयि रुच तव रुत्तनेत्रैः पास्वान् किमेष दहनो नु सनत्कुमारे योगी नु कोयमिति शुक्रमुखै सशङ्गे.
Third line, last letter, Kumaro. Kumare, you said Kumaro. Sanat Kumar.
आनीदमाशु भृगुभिर्महसा विबुधैः त्वां रम्यरूपमसुरः पुलकावृताङ्गः भक्त्या समेद सुकृति परिनिज्य पादौ तत्तोयमन् भद्रत मूर्तिनि तीर्थतीर्थम् प्रह्लादवंशजदया कृतुभिर्विजेष्यु विश्वासतोनु तदितं तितिजोऽपि लेपे पदाम्बुगिरिसस्य सुरोबिलाल्यं सत्वं विभो गुरुपुरालय पालयेताः.
And third line, last word, Shiro.
Shirobilal.
Yeah, very good.
Shirobilal. Thank you.
Rajesh, got a quick question, Andy.
Hmm.
So in the 7th one, it is the second line starts with Bya.
Yeah.
Bya.
Bya. VYA. Bya.
Bya.
Because that ig that is there becomes a ik at the end of the first line. So
Okay.
prak, we put ik there, right? So that ig gha in the second line goes away. So it starts with vyavran vadeva.
Thank you.
Rajesh ji, 4-line tune I'm not very good at, so you might have to excuse my rhythmic
That's okay.
scale.
I can maybe start it off for you, but I adjust your pitch with mine, right? Preetya daityah tava tanumah prekshanat sarvatapi.
Sure, thank you. Dasakam 31, Bali with Vamshanam. Preetya daityah davatanumah prekshana charvadapi tvamaratyanajita rasayan anjalim sanjakata mattah kim te samapilashitam viprasuno vadatvam vittam bhaktam bhavanamavanim vapi sarvam pratasye तामक्षीणां बलिकिरम् उपाकर्ण्य कारुण्यपूर्णोऽपि अस्योत्सेहं समयितुमना दैत्यवंशं प्रशंसन् भूमिं पादत्रयपरिमितां प्रार्थयामासि तत्त्वं सर्वं देहीति tudi nikatite kasya hasyam navasyat.
Anita, on the first line, after upa karnya, there's a comma, okay? So, yeah.
Vishvesham mam tripatamiha kim yachase palishastvam sarvam bhumim vrinu kimunet yalabatvam chatrupyan यस्मात् तर्पात् त्रिपद परिपूर्त्य क्षमना शेपवातान् पन्दं सा चासा वकमत् अद दर्शोऽपि काटोपसान्ध्यै
अत दर्भोऽपि
काटोपशान्त्यै.
Third line after that, kshamaha, that visarga you have to say, okay, because ksha is coming later, right? So purtya kshamaha kshepavada.
Kshamaha पादत्रैत्यायति नमुदितो विष्टभैर्ननापि तुष्येत् इत्युक्तेऽस्मिन् वरद भवते तादुकामे ततोऽयं दैत्याचार्यः तव खलु परीक्षणार्थी परीक्षार्थी नः प्रेरणातं मामादेयं हरिरयमिति व्यक्तमेवापभाषे याचत् एवं यति स भगवान् पूर्णकामोऽस्मि सोऽहं दास्याम्येव स्थिरमिति वदन् काव्यशातोऽपि दैत्यः विद्यावल्या निजतैतया तत्तपात्याय दुभ्यं चित्रं शकलमभिष प्रार्पयत्तोय पूर्वम्.
The last line, the comma is after chitram. Okay, and then in the third line, first word, Vindhyavalya.
Vindhya, yes. Vindhya is the wife, yes. Nishanteham tidikulapatau tvayashesharpanam tat.
Yeah, then
sorry.
Go ahead.
Nishanteham tidikulapatau tvayashesharpanam tat vyatanvane mumushurrushayas samarah pushpavarsham divyam rupam tava cha taditam pashyatam vishvabhajam uccaihi avrutat Avatiya kritya vishvanda pandam Tvatpadagraham nijapadakatam pundarikotpavosau kundito yaihi asichat apunat yajjalam vishvalokan harshat subahu nakrute kesharair utsavesmin Verim niknan bhuvana amarasaj jambavan bhaktishali.
And the fourth line, Bhuvanam Acharaj Jambavan.
Bhuvanam acharaj jambavan bhaktishali. Tavataityastvanumatim brute Bharturad yukta Devo Vedair Bhavatanucharaihi Sankata Pankamapan Mapan Kalat Mayam Vasati Purato Yatvasat Prakita Smaha Kimvo Yuktairiti Baligira Tedapatala Pasair Batakapatina Daitya Muchai Saravati Tatiyikam Dishamam Mamapadam Kimna Vishveshwaroshi Padam Murti Pranaya Pahavan Nityakambam Vadantam Prahladastam Swayamupakato Manayannastavitvam Darbo Chityai Vihitam Akilam Daitya Sittoshi Punyaihi Lokastestu Tridiva Vijayi Vasavatvam Chapaschat Matsayujyam Bhajasa Punarityatvan Krishna Balintam Viprai Santanita Makavaraha Pahivatalayesha.
The third line on the last stanza, Punarit Yenva Grinna.
Punarityatva Krishna Balintam Viprai. Thank you.
So Rajesh,
Yeah.
What is the rule when the Visarga comes in between lines? When do you pronounce it? I mean, especially in this 31, some of the Visargas are pronounced and some are not. And
Like
what is
which one?
the
Pick one example, right?
6? Number 6.
Mm.
Vyada Nuane Mumuchir Samara.
Yeah. So the general rule of Visarga is if it is coming at the end of a line, okay, you say that Visarga, because wherever you're stopping, you say the Visarga. That's the general rule of the Visarga. If you're not stopping, you have to join it and keep going. That's the number one rule. There's only one exception to the rule. When the letter Ksha is coming after the Visarga, like in this chapter, right? If you look at stanza 3, Tripada Paripurtya Kshamaha Kshepavadan. So although we are not having a comma after Purtya Kshamaha, you're saying that Visarga because Ksha, Kshepavadan is coming after that. Otherwise, general rule of Visarga is if you're pausing, then you say the Visarga. If you're not pausing, then you put the joining letter and keep going.
So I thought in number 4, third line, Daityacharyaha, I thought the ha was pronounced, the Visarga. Why?
Yeah, because we paused there. We said Daityacha. It's like kind of saying, like putting a comma in English.
Okay.
Okay. So when you're writing a sentence, sometimes you put a comma, right? So here it is saying the Daityacharya Shukra, who's the guru of the Asuras, comma. Then you write this rest of the sentence, right? So that's kind of how you have to interpret that particular thing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Dasakam 32.
So Rajesh, so when is comes, it becomes a ha, and when other sounds comes with the visarga in the center, then you stress the word with ha, right?
It depends on what is the letter coming after. If sa is coming after, it becomes a is. If ta is coming after, it becomes a is. If kha is coming, it becomes a ih. If pa is coming, it becomes an F. So it kind of depends on what is the letter which is coming after the visarga.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so Dashakam 32, Matsyavatara Varnanam. So in the first half, Sita Garu, you can be student, Malini, you can be student. Second half, Mridula Ji, you and Viji, you can be student. So stanza 1. Pura Hayagriva Mahasurena Shashtantarantodhyadakanda Kalpe Nidronmukha Brahma Mukadhriteshu Vedeshvaditsah Kilamatsya Rupam. So this Matsya Avataram, it actually happens 2 times. Okay. So this kind of first starts with, because Parikshit is asking, this Supreme Lord Narayana, I heard that he took the form of a fish. He says, why would the Supreme Lord take the form of a fish? Because fish is the lowest of the creature, right? When you think of today's, animal hierarchy, right? Fish is the lowest of the creature. So he says fish is generally condemned upon because it doesn't have, it cannot do, it can only live in water, it can only do some things. So he says, why did the Lord take Avataram as a fish? So Shukra Brahman says very nicely that, see, all these things for the protection or for doing certain purposes, Bhagavan will take incarnation in any form because all of those are created by Bhagavan. So he doesn't differentiate that fish is the lowest one, human is the highest one, like taking a thing as a boar is better. So he says he doesn't differentiate amongst all of these things. Whatever avatar needs to happen, whatever he desires, it happens, right? He doesn't compare between good or bad or high or low or any of those things. There's absolutely no differentiation. Now, this Matsyavataram happens 2 times. So first time when it happens is when the Kalpa, the day of Brahma gets over, because remember we are now in the 51st year, first day of the 51st year of Brahma. When the 50th year, last day of Brahma, Kalpa gets over, and there was a Naimittika Pralayam that happened, in the transition period before the 51st year, first day happens, Brahma then at that time, there's a kalpa, there's equal amount of time when it says Brahma goes to sleep, which means nothing is happening, right? So at that time, the knowledge that Brahma had, which was a knowledge of the Vedas, was lost. So at that time, on the first day of the 51st year of Brahma, the Lord then came in the form of a Matsya, in the form of a fish, to then teach Vedas to Brahma. Because it is said when the knowledge is lost, it is said that the Asura Hayagriva came and took off the Vedas. Now, Vedas are not physically written, it's only communicated through sound. So it kind of tends to mean that the Brahma lost the knowledge. So when the first day happened and the Lord came as Matsya, took an Matsyavataram, then preach the knowledge of the Vedas to Brahma. That's the first instance of Matsyavataram, okay? Which is what is the first stanza. He's saying you took the thing when that happened, right? Then the second time when it happens, which is going to be the rest of the story, is the current Manu, the current day of Brahma. Remember, one day of Brahma has 14 Manus. The transition period between the 6th Manu and the 7th Manu is happening. At that time, another avataram is Matsyavataram is going to happen. So Pura Hayagriva Mahasurena, Shashtantarantod Yadakanda Kalpe. If you want to break it, actually you cannot even do that. Sorry. You have to say that whole thing together. Shashtantarantod Yadakanda Kalpe. One full word. Nidron Mukha Brahma Mukhad Dhriteshu, Vedeshvaditsaha, put a ich sound, Vedeshvaditsah Kila Matsya Rupam. Pura Hayagriva Mahasurena Shashtantarantodhyadakanda Kalpe Nidron Mukha Brahma Mukhadhriteshu Vedeshvaditsah Kila Matsya Rupam.
Pura Hayagriva Mahasurena Shashtantarantodhyadakanda Nidronmukha Brahma Mukhadhruteshu Vedeshvaditsah Kila Matsya Rupam.
2 times in the girl.
Pura Hayagriva Mahasurena Shashtantarantodhyadakanda निद्रोन्मुख ब्रह्ममुखादृतेषु वेदेष्वदित्सः किल मत्स्यरूपम्
पुरा हयग्रीवमहासुरेण षष्ठान्तरान्दोत्यदकाण्डकल्पे निद्रोन्मुखब्रह्ममुखादृतेषु वेदेष्वदित्स किल मत्स्यरूपम्.
Only one more.
Sorry. पुरा हयग्रीवमहासुरेण षष्ठान्तरोन्दोद्यतकाण्डकल्पे निद्रोन्मुखब्रह्ममुखादृतेषु वेदेष्वदित्स किल मत्स्यरूपम्.
Tantu. Satyavratasya dramiladibhartuh nadi jale tarpayatastadhanim karanjalau sanjwalita kritestvam adrishyatah kaschana balaminah. So that what happened with Brahma, you taking the form of Matsya to teach the Vedas, that's done there. It'll again come back in the last stanza saying you got rid of Hayagriva, but that's just a condition. Now the next story starts. So like the sixth Manu was called as Chakshusha Manu. So at the end of the period of the Chakshusha Manu, when his period was coming to an end, there was a king called Satyavrata. So that king Satyavrata was a very great, because he was going to be the next Manu, right? He's going to be the Vaivaswata Manu, who's the current Manu. So when he was there as Satyavrata, he was of course very devoted, because that's why he gets to become the next Manu. So he was then undergoing severe penances and austerities where he was just depending on water. That's what he was sustaining on. So one day when he was actually in the banks of the river Kritamala, when he was doing Tarpanam, when he was doing Tarpanam with water, when he took the water from the river, suddenly in his hand, Kaschana Bhalamina, one very small fish which was very shining, ends up coming into his hands. Satya Vratasya Dramiladi Bhartuhu. So put a Visarga comma, Bhartuhu. Next line on top of that Nadi, there is a ir that goes away. Nadi Jale Tarpayatas Tadanim Karanjalo Sanjwalita Kritis, one word, Sanjwalita Kritis Tvam. So that ma that is there, put a im comma, Tvam, comma. Next word starts with the a. Adrishyataha, put a ih sound. Adrishyatah Kaschana Balaminah. Satyavratasya Dramiladhibhartuhu Nadi Jale Tarpayatastadanin Karanjalau Sanjwalita Kritestvam Adrishyatah Kaschana Balaminah.
सत्यव्रतस्य द्रमिलादिभर्तुः नदीजले तर्पयतस्तदानीं कराञ्जलौ सञ्ज्वलिताकृतिस्त्वम् अदृश्यथाः कश्चन पालमीनः सत्यव्रतस्य द्रमिलादिभर्तुः नदीजले तर्पयतस्तदानीं कराञ्जलौ सञ्ज्वलिताकृतिस्त्वम् अदृश्यथाः कश्चन बालमीनः
सत्यव्रतस्य द्रमिलादिभर्तुः नदीजले दर्पयदस्तदानीं कराञ्जलौ सञ्ज्वलिताकृतिस्त्वम् अदृश्यता कश्चन बालमीनः सत्यव्रतस्य द्रमिलादिभर्तुः नदीजले तर्पयदस्तदानीं कराञ्जलौ स्वञ्ज्वलिताकृतस्त्वम् अदृश्यता कञ्चन बालमीनः.
Malini, and the third line, Sanjwalita.
Sanjwalita
Yeah.
Kritistvam. Okay.
Stanza 3. Kshiptam jale tvam chakitam vilokya Ninyembupatreena munisvageham Swalpairahobeh kalashim chakupam Vapim saraschana shishe vibhotvam. So when he is doing the Tarpanam and he gets a small fish in his hand, So he then thinks that accidentally the fish has come to his hand. So naturally, he ends up putting the fish back into the water. So at that time, the fish is communicating with Satyavrata. Doesn't mean the fish is talking, right? The fish somehow is communicating with Satyavrata, saying that, "O king, don't put me into this water because there are actually large other aquatic animals in this water here who are going to end up eating me." So the fish says, "I'm very afraid of them." She says, "You take me home with you, right?" So Satyavrata, when he gets that message, he then takes first, he decides to give the fish the protection, right? So first what he does is he has his kamandalam. In that kamandalam, he fills it with some water and then puts the fish into that water and then he brings it back home. So at the night, when he comes back home, the fish starts growing in size. Now, some of these things, don't ask me how it happens, but that's what it is, right? The fish starts growing and now it cannot fit into that kamandalo anymore. So it says, communicates to him saying, "You put me into a pot." So he then takes a fish and then puts it into the pot. So he puts it into the pot. Overnight, the fish continues to grow. And then he says, "Okay, I can't stay in the pot anymore. You have to go put me into a well." So he then takes the fish and somehow moves it into the well, which is there in his house. Then the fish starts growing even more in size. It says, "I cannot even fit into this well anymore. You have to go put me into a river or another water stream." So he says, "Okay." And then he goes and puts it into like a large tank, right? A water body that is actually there. And then he because then it becomes even big, and then eventually he goes and puts it into a lake. So that's what is happening. So it starts growing in size. Like Vaman Avataram, here the fish is also growing overnight, it's growing in size. Kshiptam jale tvam chakitam vilokya, comma, ninyembhu patrena munihi, put is munis swageham, swalpairahobihi, put ich sound, swalpairahobih, kalashim cha kupam, comma, vapim sarashchanashishe vibhotvam. The Bhattaripada is saying, "You, Guru Ayappa, you are growing in size," because Bhattaripada knows this is the Lord himself who's come in the form of a fish. Kshiptam jale tvam chakitam vilokya ninyembu patrena muniswageham swalpairahobih kalashim chakupam vapim saraschana shishe vibhotvam.
क्षिप्तं जले त्वां चकितं विलोक्य निन्ये भूपात्रेण मुनिस्वगेहं स्वल्पैरहोभिः कलसीं च कूपं वापीं सरश्चान शिशे विभोत्वम् क्षिप्तं जले त्वां चकितं विलोक्य निन्ये भूपात्रेण मुनिस्वगेहं स्वल्पैरहोभिः कलसीं च कूपं वापीं सरश्चान शिशे विभोत्वम्.
Malini, you're on mute.
Sorry. क्षिप्तं जले त्वां सकितं विलोक्य निन्येम्बुपात्रेण मुनिस्वकेहं स्वल्पैरहोभिः कलसीं च कूपं वापीं सरश्चानशिशे विभोत्वम् क्षिप्तं जले त्वां सगितं विलोक्य निन्येम्बुपात्रेण मुनिस्वकेहं स्वल्पैरहोभिः कलसीं च कूपं वापीं शरश्चानशिशे विभोत्वम्.
Stanza 4. Yoga prabhavad bhavadagnyaiva neetastatastvam munina payodhim prishto muna kalpa didrukshumenam saptahamasveti vadannayasihi. Finally, when he puts it into the river, the fish even outgrows the river. So then the fish then tells the king that, what, you have no choice, but you actually have to go put me into an ocean because that is the only way I can actually move there. So it says yoga prabhava. Somehow by his yogic power, Satyavrata is able to move the fish to the ocean. So when he finally takes the fish to the ocean, so even there the fish is complaining. It is saying that, what, now I'm worried to go into the ocean because there is some shark or something will come and eat me. So he says, fish says, "I don't know what to do. You have to help me." So at that time, Satyavrata has already come to the realization saying, overnight, you have grown from a tiny fish to a fish which is several miles long, right? This is a massive size, right? Because we'll see why that is. So it's a massive sized fish. Satyavrata says, "You are not an ordinary person. I know you are probably the Supreme Lord yourself who has actually come in this form." So because he says, "I've never seen an aquatic creature which is this big." That's how the massive size of it is. So he says, I know you've taken as incarnation probably, because like you said, right, incarnations happen all the time. It is just that the right people have to be there to identify that the incarnation is there. So yes, Satyavrata says, I know it's one of your avataram here. So please tell me, why are you here and what is actually happening? So at that time, the Lord says that 7 days from now, there is going to be another pralayam that is going to happen. Now, this pralayam, like we said, there is one which happens at the end of the day of Brahma, then one which happens at the end of the life of Brahma. Now, this is a transition period, right? Chakshusha Manu is ruling right now. Next, Vaivasvata Manu is going to come. There is no pralayam that happens between a Chakshusha Manu to Vaivasvata Manu. So, what happens in this particular instance is there is one small pralayam that ends up happening. I don't know why that happens, but in this case, it's a small kind of entire world is going to get flooded. So, the Lord says that in 7 days from now, the entire world is going to get flooded. So, at that time, what's going to happen, he says, is the Lord then gives this person the instructions saying that this not, and when this happens, I want you to actually, the 7 sages, Sapta Rishis are going to come. I want you to be with them. I will come back after 7 days and then I will come and protect all of you. That's the instruction the fish actually gives Satyavrata, and then the fish disappears. So yoga prabhavat bhavadagnyayaiva, comma, Nitas tatastvam munina payodhim prishto muna kalpa didrukshumenam, comma, saptaham asveti. You can break at the ma if you want. Saptaham asveti vadanna yasihi. Yoga prabhavad bhavadagnyahyaiva nitastatastvam munina payodhim prishto muna kalpa didrukshumenam saptahamasveti vadannayasihi.
योगप्रभावाद् भवदाज्ञयैव नीतस्ततस्त्वं मुनिना पयोधिं पृष्टो मुना कल्पति दृक्षुमेनं सप्ताहमास्वेति वदन्नयासीः योगप्रभावाद् भवदाज्ञयैव नीतस्ततस्त्वं मुनिना पयोधिं पृष्टो मुना कल्पति दृक्षुमेनं सप्ताहमास्वेति वदन्नयासीः.
योगप्रभावाद् भवता ज्ञयैव नीतस्ततस्त्वं मुनिना पयोधिं पृष्टामुनो कल्प दिदृक्षुमेनं सप्ताहमास्वेति वदन्नयासी योगप्रभावाद् भवताज्ञयैव नीतस्ततस्त्वं मुनिना पयोधिं पृष्टो मुना कल्प दिदृक्षुमेनं सप्ताहमास्वेति वदन्नयासीः.
प्राप्ते त्वदुक्ते हनि वारिधारा परिप्लुते भूमितले मुनीन्द्रः सप्तर्षिभिः सार्धमपारवारिणि उद्घूर्णमानः शरणं ययौ त्वाम्. So when Satyavrata says, okay, pralayam is going to come, he says, I want to witness that pralayam because that's a very rare opportunity. So he says, I also want to witness it, and then the Lord disappears, the fish disappears. So after that, the Satyavrata now knows that 7 days from now, the entire world is going to get destroyed. So like Parikshit, what he decides is, I want to now use that 7 days very wisely, right? So he then puts the Kushagraha and he gets into meditation. Now time passes, now 7 days comes to an end. When the 7 days are about to end, so at that time, the clouds start coming and the entire world starts pouring incessant rain and it starts flooding the entire area. So when that happens, Satyavrata is now beginning to, feel afraid because the entire rain is coming, everything is getting flooded and the water is overflowing from the ocean. All of that is happening. At the same time, when he's about to surrender to the Lord, he also sees that the 7 sages are also approaching where he is. So prapte Twadukte hani, comma, Vari dhara pariplute bhumitale munindraha, comma, Saptarshibihi is there, put a is Saptarshibis Sardham Apara Varini. So there you will have a in and a u, new. We are going to break that out. So Sardham Apara Varini, short ni, comma. The next word will start with the u, Udgurnamana. Okay, so the new that is there becomes a ni and a u. Varini, comma, Udgurnamanaha, put a ish to join, Udgurnamanash, Sharanam Yayotvam. Prapte Twadukte Hani, Varidhara Pariplute Bhumitale Munindraha, Saptarshibhis Sardamapara Varini, Udgurnamanash Sharanam Yayotvam.
Rajeshkar, in the last line, is it ana or ni, na, like the last letter, the third line?
Sardhamapara Varini. Ni.
Ana, ana,
Yeah,
ni.
na, the second na.
Okay.
Second
ana,
na, right? Na.
okay. Like this, yeah.
Yeah, that na, ni.
Okay, thank you. Prapte twadukte hani varidhara pariplute bhumitale munindraha saptarshibhih sardamapara Udgurnamanas sharanam yayotvam. My tune is completely off. Sorry.
I think after Twaditte Hani, I think you continued with the same tune. That's right. So anyway, try it now.
Prapte twadukte hani varidhara pariplute bhumitale munindraha saptarshibis sardamapara Udgurnamanas sharanam yayotvam.
I think what you're doing, Sitagaru, is that whole line you're sticking to the first line tune, the two lines, right? The Prapte Twadukte Hani Varidhara Pariplute Bhumi Tale Munindraha. That's okay. It's just the two lines, but you were continuing with the same tune. That's right.
Yeah, I'll practice. Sorry.
प्राप्ते त्वदुक्ते हनि वारिदार परिप्लुते भूमितले मुनीन्द्रः सप्तर्षिभिः सार्धमपार वारिणि उत्कूर्णमान शरणं ययौ त्वाम्. நீங்க இன்னொரு தடவை, I think you need to start.
I think you repeated the same thing she did. So I think what is happening is that Twadukte Hani is the end of the line. But you continued with the same tune for the second line also. That's right. That's what is happening.
It is fairly shorter than
Yeah, that's short, right? It's very hard.
I'll say it. Prapte Twadukte Hani Varidhara Pariplute Bhumitale Munindraha Saptarshibhis Sardamapara Varini Udgurnamana Sharanam Yayotvam.
प्राप्ते त्वदुक्ते हनि वारिधारा परिप्लुते भूमित, and the bhumitale is the one that changes.
Bhumitale Munindraha.
Bhumitale Munindraha Saptarshibis Sardamapara Varini Utkurnamana Sharanam Yayau Tvam.
This one, because that particular line is short, because there's no other place to break it. That's right. So,
okay.
Stanza 6. Dharam twadadesha karima vaptam naurupini maruruhustadhate tatkampa kampreshu chateshu bhuyah tomam bhudera virabhur mahiyan. So at that time, the 7 Sapta Rishis also come, and this what happens during the Pralayam, this is not as much of a good description is not put in this case, but later on in Dasakam 97, we will see how it is when a Pralayam happens, right? So, but here anyway, it says very easily, it just goes off saying that he's finding water everywhere. So when you find water everywhere, everything is destroyed, and it is just water everywhere you see. So Satyavrata suddenly becomes very afraid, right? He is beginning to panic. So at that time, the Sapta Rishis happen to come there somehow, and then they tell Satyavrata, don't panic about this. Just think of the Supreme Lord in your mind, right? Just keep meditating on the Lord and things will get taken care of. So when they think at the time, just like how the Lord had previously said, he said a vessel like a boat or something is going to come to protect you. So that comes, and also the giant fish now comes back again. As said, after 7 days, the fish comes back again. Dharam Twadadesha Karim Avaptam. You cannot break that. Twadadesha Karim Avaptam, comma. Now Rupinim Aruruhus. You can break at that ma. Rupinim Aruruhus Tadate. Tat Kampa Kampreshu Chateshu Bhuyaha. That is, you remove, put a visarga, comma, Bhuyaha. Next word, I'll break it into 3 parts. Tvam Ambudher Avirabhur, if you want to break it. Or you can say it together also. Tomambhuder Avirabhur Mahiyan. Dharam Twadadesha Karim Havaptam Naurupini Maruruhustadate Tatkampa Kampreshu Chateshu Bhuyah Tomambhuder Avirabhur Mahiyan.
Is it me still, Rajesh Garu?
Yeah, continue, yeah.
Okay. Dharam Twadadeshakarimavaptam Naurupini Maruruhastadate Tatkampakam Preshu Chateshu Bhuyaha Tvamambudhera Virabhurmahiyan Dharam Twadadeshakarimavaptam Naurupini Maruruhustadate Tatkampakam Preshu Tateshu Bhuyaha Tvamambudhera Virabhurmahiyan.
Dharan vada de shakarim avaptam naurupinim aruruhastadate tatkampareshu sadeshu bhuya.
No, after the bhuyaha, that was Tatkampakam Preshu Chateshu Bhuyaha.
Oh, okay, it stops there. Okay. Tatkampareshu sadeshu bhuyaha Tvamambhude ravi.
And the ra is there, right? Tvamambhuder, break that ra.
Oh, okay.
Tvamambhuder Avirabhur Mahiyan.
Tvamambhuder avi rabur mahiyan.
Yeah, and the rabur, you don't have to separate it. Tvamambhuder Avirabhur Mahiyan.
Tvamambhuder avi rabur mahiyan. Dharan dvadate chakarim avaptam naurupinim aruruhastadate tatkambakambareshu sadeshu bhuyah tvamambhuter avirabhur mahiyan.
And so 7. Jasha Kritim Yojana Laksha Dhirgam Dadanamuchai Jasam Tvam Niriksha Tushta Munayastvaduktya Tvatunga Shringe Taranim Bhabanduhu. So the fish, that was there, right? The fish which came, it says Lakshana, it's just huge, right? Sometimes they kind of generally, we say thousands, right? So it says it's so big that it's indescribable. That's the size of the fish. Because what's going to happen is the fish is going to take them everywhere all over the world. So it's a massive sized fish. And now they attach the boat to the fish. The sages say, don't worry, this is the Lord who has come back again. And they all get on to that, and then they attach that to the fish. And the fish is not going to, then the Lord is going to talk. Then if he begins to talk, right, which I think goes into the next stanza. So with that, the Lord begins to take them around. Jasha Kritim Yojana Laksha Dhirgam, comma, Dhadanam Uchais Tara Tejasam Tvam Nirikshya Tushta Munayas Tvaduktya, comma, Tvatunga Shringhe, double is it and 2. Tvatunga Shringhe Taranim Babanduhu. Jasha Kritim Yojana Laksha Dhirgam Dadhanamuchai Starate Jasam Tvam Nirikshya Tushta Munayastvaduktya त्वत्तुङ्गशृङ्गे तरणिं बबन्धुः
जशाकृतिं योजनलक्षदीर्घां दधानमुच्चैस्तरतेजसत्वां दधानमुच्चैस्तरतेजसं त्वां निरीक्ष्य तुष्टा मुनयस्त्वदुक्त्या त्वत्तुङ्गशृङ्गे तरणिं बबन्धुः जशाकृतिं योजनलक्षदीर्घां दधानमुच्चैस्तरतेजसं त्वां निरीक्ष्य तुष्टा मुनयस्त्वदुक्त्या त्वत्तुङ्गशृङ्गे तरणिं बबन्धुः
जशाकृतिं योजनलक्षदीर्घां ददानमुच्चैस्तर तेजसं त्वां निरीक्ष्य दुष्टा मुनयस्त्वगत्या त्वतुङ्गशृङ्गे धरणिं बबन्धुः जशाकृतिं योजनलक्षदीर्घां ददानमुच्चैस्तर तेजसं त्वां निरीक्ष्य दुष्टा मुनयस्त्वगत्या
त्वदुक्त्या
मुनयस्त्वदुक्त्या त्वदुङ्गशृङ्गे धरणिं बबन्धुः.
and the fourth line beginning with it's a it and a tu, right?
त्वत्तुङ्ग, okay.
Yeah.
त्वत्तुङ्गशृङ्गे धरणिं बबन्धुः.
That's it. कृष्णनौको मुनिमण्डलाय प्रदर्शयन् विश्वजगद्विभागान् संस्तूयमानो नृपरेण तेन ज्ञानं परं चोपदिशन्नचारीः. So now this fish, right, like I said, is so massive in size because it's taking them, because this Satyavrata is going to become the next Manu. So he has to get all the instructions of who the supreme reality is, what the Brahman is, what the duality principle, all of that, and the is individuality principle. He has to get all that knowledge. So this fish is actually giving them instructions. It's teaching them about Sankhya Yoga, teaching them about Bhakti Yoga, teaching how everything works, right? So all those instructions are given by the Lord in the form of Matsya to Satyavrata and all the 7 sages. Now, the 7 sages also change every time a new Manu comes, right? So these are the new 7 sages who are going to be installed. So they all get the instructions, and then Muni Mandalaya, you then show them the entire universe, right? So that's why you cannot think of this as a fish which only swims in water and small in size. This is kind of beyond, it's incomprehensible, right? So it's showing him the entire universe and showing this is what the entire universe is. Because the next is Manu, he's going to become the next Manu. So it gives him all the necessary instructions about Brahman and Atma and everything. So he understands how everything actually works. And they all then praise the Supreme Lord. Akrishta Nauko Muni Mandalaya, Pradarshayan Vishwa Jagat Vibhagan Samstuyamano Nrivarena Tena, Jnanam Param Chopadishannacharihi. Akrishtanauko Munimandalaya Pradarshayyan Vishwajagadvibhagan Samstuyamano Nrivarena Tena Jnanam Param Chopadishannacharihi.
आकृष्टनौको मुनिमण्डलाय प्रदर्शयन् विश्वजगद्विभागान् संस्तूयमानो नृवरेण तेन ज्ञानं परं चोपदिशन्नचारीः आकृष्टनौको मुनिमण्डलाय प्रदर्शयन् विश्वजगद्विभागान् संस्तूयमानो नृवरेण तेन ज्ञानं परं चोपदिशन्नचारीः
आकृष्टनौको मुनिमण्डलाय प्रदर्शयन् विश्वजगद्विभागान् संस्तूयमानो नृवरेण तेन ज्ञानं परं चोपदिशन्नचारीः आकृष्टनौको मुनिमण्डलाय प्रदर्शयन् विश्वजगद्विभागान् संस्तूयमानो नृवरेण तेन ज्ञानं परं चोपदिशन्नचारीः.
Right, let's just switch. I think we had Mridulaji and Vijay, the second half. Kalpavadhau saptamunin purovate prastapya satyavrata bhumipam tam vaivasvathakyam manumadadhanah krodhadhayagrivam abhidruto bhuh. So with this, at the end, so he's in teaching, the Lord is teaching them all the details. So with that Satyavrata, who now had all the necessary knowledge which was actually required so that he can become the next Manu. So when the Chakshusha Manu's period got over, which is right after that Pralayam, which was a once in a while Pralayam that came at the end of Chakshusha Manu's period, when that got over and the next Manvantara is starting, so at that time Satyavrata becomes Vaivaswata Manu, because he's then born as the son of the sun god. So sun, S-U-N, sun, is called Vivaswan. So because he's born as the son of the sun god, he's called as a Vaivaswata Manu. And because he had got all the instructions which was actually required, and also the 7 sages, the new 7 sages were established for the Manu, everybody kind of took their spot, because the next Manvantara is now beginning. So Kalpa Bhadau Saptamunin Purovate, comma, Prastapya Satyavrata Bhumipam tam Vaivasvathakyam Manumadadhanah, comma, Krodha, the next, the dha is coming at the bottom. So you can either say Krodha Dhayagriva or Krodha Hayagriva, because it's actually ha, which becomes a dha there. So Krodha Hayagrivam Abhidruto Bhuhu. Kalpavadhau saptamunin purovate prastapya satyavrata bhumipam tam vaivasvathakyam manumadadhanah krodadhayagrivam abhidruto bhuh.
Kalpavathau saptamunin purovata prastapya satyavrata bhumipam tam vaivasvatakyam manumadadhanah krodadayagrivam abhidruto bhuh. Kalpavathau saptamunin purovata prastapya satyavratam bhumipam tam vaivasvatakyam manumadadhanah krodadayagrivam abhidruto bhuh.
Kalpavadau saptamunin purovate prastabhya satyavrita bhumipam tam vaivasyatarkyam manumadadhanah krodhatam hayagrivam abhidruto bhuh. Kalpavatau saptamunin purovate prastabhya satyavrita bhumipam tam vaivasyatarkyam manumadadhanah krodhat hayagrivam abhidruto bhuh.
So on the, I think the third line, first word, Vaivasvatakyam, say that word again.
Vaivasyatarkyam.
No, you're saying Vaivasya, you're saying Vaivasvatakyam.
Okay. Vaivasvatarkyam
And you're saying a ir sound I'm hearing as well. Vaivasvatakyam.
Oh, I'm having actually என்னோடதுல ir இருக்கு. Okay.
Okay, so just remove that. There's no ir there. Vaivasvatakyam.
Okay. Vaivasvatakyam
Yeah.
manumadadhanah. Okay.
Manumadadhanah. Stanza 10. Swatunga Shringa Kshatavaksha tam Nipatya Daityam Nigaman Grihitva Birinchaye Prita Hride Dadhanah Prabhanjanagara Pate Prapayaha. So then, this way, Lord, you took the incarnation as Matsyavataram, one, to establish Satyavrata as the next Manu, to give him all the instructions so he can continue to govern. At the same time, it closes with what it started, which is for that first time when you did the Matsyavataram, you also then got rid of the demon Hayagriva, who stole the Vedas from Brahma. Like we said, you cannot steal that. It is more of, it's a kind of a metaphor just to compare, to say Brahma lost the knowledge, right? So when you say I lost the knowledge, that means it has gone somewhere. So the Hayagriva is kind of assumed as a demon who's coming and stealing it, but nothing. Brahma is sleeping, he wakes up, he loses the knowledge. So you then incarnated the knowledge back to Brahma also. So with these two things, you took the Matsyavataram. So with that, this thing comes to an end. And here, Bhattaripada is using the word Prabhanjanagarapate. So because it's referring to Guruvayurappan only, because this Prabhanjana is the kind of oil or like it's a medicinal thing which is applied to the idol at Guruvayur. So that is also a very medicinal property thing, like it is used for curing rheumatoid arthritis also. So because it's a Prabhanjana is the name of the Ayurvedic oil which is applied. It's called a Prabhanjanagara Pate, the one to whom this is applied. Right? That's why it's referring to Guru Ayappan only at the end of the day. Prapayaha, please protect me. Swatunga Shringa Kshata Vakshasamtam, Nipatya Daityam Nigaman Grihitva Virinchaye Prita Hride Dadanaha. Virinchaye refers to Brahma. So Brahma is very happy because he's got the knowledge back. Dadanaha, Prabhanjanagarapate Prapayaha. Swatunga Shringa Kshatavakshasamtam Nipatya Daityam Nigaman Grihitva Virinchaye Prita Hride Dadanaha Prabhanjanagarapate Prapayaha.
Swatunga Shrinka Kshatavakshasamtam Nipatya Daityam Nigaman Grihitva Virinjaye Prita Hride Dadanaha Prabhanjanagarapate Prapayaha. Swatunga Shrinka Kshatavakshasamtam Nipatya Daityam Nigaman Grihitva Virinjaye Prita Hride Dadanaha Prabhanjanagarapate Prapayaha.
स्वतुङ्कशृङ्कशतवक्षसं तं निपात्यतैत्यं निकमान् गृहीत्वा विरिञ्चये प्रीतहृदे ददानः प्रभञ्जनाकारपते प्रभायाः स्वतुङ्कशृङ्कशतवक्षसं तं निपात्यतैत्यं निकमान् गृहीत्वा विरिञ्चये प्रीतहृदे ददानः Prabhanjanakarapate Prabhayaha.
Hey Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Move to Dashakam 33. It's a very beautiful Dashakam. It's Ambarisha Upakyanam. Like we said, like some chapters which talk about great devotees. We saw about Ajamila, we saw about Gajendra Moksham, we saw about Dhruva, we saw all those great devotees. Ambarisha is one such devotee, right? And talks about how the God comes to protect his devotees. वैवस्वताक्यमनुपुत्र न भागजात नाभागनामक नरेन्द्र सुतोऽम्बरीशः सप्तार्णवावृतमहीदयितोऽपि रेमे त्वत्सङ्गिषु त्वयि च मग्नमनाः सदैव. So we're continuing with this Vaivaswata Manu. So one of the sons of Vaivaswata Manu was called as Nabhaga. Then Nabhaga's son is called Nabhaga. Like we say Vasudeva, Vasudeva, right? That's the difference. Similarly, Nabhaga, Nabhaga. Nabhaga was the grandson of Vaivaswata Manu. So this Nabhaga, one day, he had left home for something else. At the time, the rest of his brothers took a distribution of the wealth of their father, of Nabhaga. All this wealth got distributed. So when Nabhaga comes back, he's seeing that there's nothing left for him. So he then goes to his father, Nabhaga, and says, I have absolutely nothing left. Father says, don't worry, you have knowledge, right? He says, there's another sacrifice which is actually happening. You go, you chant mantrams and everything, you'll be taken care of. So he does that. He gets, people give him a lot of gifts and wealth. So that time Lord Shiva comes to test him by asking for everything he has, which he ends up giving. So Shiva then gets very pleased, and then in return, Nabhaga gets a lot more back. So essentially, eventually, this Nabhaga becomes a very famous king, very rich, very opulent, and gets everything. To that Nabhaga, who is the grandson of Vaivaswata Manu, is born a person called Ambarisha. So this Ambarisha, then because he's in that clan, because he's one of the descendants of it, he's also extremely devoted, right? And then although he was ruling over the 7 seas, which means ruling over the entire world, he was a ruler and he had all the money, all the wealth, all the prosperity. he somehow had a single-minded dedication to the Lord. He was extremely devoted to Lord Narayana, and he was always worshipping Narayana and the devotees of Lord Narayana as well. So Vaivaswathakya Manu Putra Nabhaga Jatha, put a plus, Nabhaga Namaka Narendra Sutombarishaha. So those two lines are together. Saptarna Vabrita Mahi Daitopi Reme, comma, Twat Sangishu Twaicha Magna Manas Sadaiva. वैवस्वताख्यमनुपुत्र न भागजात नाभाग नामक नरेन्द्र सुतोम्बरीशः सप्तार्णवावृतमहीदयितोऽपि रेमे त्वत्सङ्गिषु त्वयि च मग्नमनाः सदैव.
वैवस्वताख्यमनुपुत्र नभागजादनाभागनामग नरेन्द्रसुतोऽम्बरीशः सप्तार्णवावृत महीदयितोऽपि रेमे त्वस्वङ्गिषु त्वयि च मग्नमनाः सदैव.
The fourth line, first word, Twat Sangishu.
Thank you. वैवस्वताख्यमनुपुत्र नभागजातनाभागनामक नरेन्द्रसुतोऽम्बरीशः सप्तार्णवावृतमहि दयितोऽपि रेमे त्वत्सङ्गिषु त्वयि च मग्नमनाः सदैव.
वैवस्यदाख्यमनुपुत्र नपाकजातनापाकनामक नरेन्द्र सुदोम्बरीक्षः सप्तार्णवावृतमही दयितोऽभिरेमे त्वत्सङ्गिषु त्वयि चक्मणमना सदैव. वैवस्यदाख्यमनुपुत्र नपाकजातनापाकनामक नरेन्द्र सुदोम्बरीक्षः सप्तार्णवावृतमही दयितोऽपि रेमे त्वत्सङ्गिषु त्वयि चमग्नमना सदैव.
And the last line, Tvai cha magna manasadaiva.
Tvai cha magna manasataiva. Okay.
Yeah, and similarly, the first line, first word, Vijay, you are saying Vaivasya, you are saying it's Vaivasva.
Okay. Vaivasvadakya. Okay.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
One more thing. Sudombarikshava, Sudombarishava.
Sutombharishaha Ambarisha.
Ambarisha, okay.
Stanza 2. Tvatpritahe sakalameva vitanvatosya bhakti vadev nachirada bhrutah prasadam yenasya yachana mritepya bhirakshanartam chakram bhavan pravitatara sahasradharam. So even though this Ambarisha was a great king, like you said, he ruled over the entire world, he had all the wealth and the fame and everything. However, none of that gave him pleasure because he was constantly praying to Lord Narayana, because that's all he was doing. So every time when he was awake, when he is sleeping, no matter what duty he was doing, he was always connected to the Lord. He was always thinking about the Lord all the time. And also, in addition to that, he also treated everybody the same. So one of them is him thinking about the Lord all the time. The second is also treating others in an equal way. So he did not differentiate about anybody. He saw the Lord in everybody else. That is the second one. Third one, also, he also had a very good control over his senses. And we'll see why that is important, right? So in the sense, he doesn't get angry. He was very calm. He was not arrogant. He had very good control over his mind and all of his senses. So at some point, he decided that I don't want any of these things. So he gave up everything that he had. And he said, all I want to be doing is I just want to be praying to Lord Narayana, right? So that's what he kind of committed himself to doing that. And he was very controlled. So anytime you completely renounce everything and you say, I only want to pray to the Lord, that's all I care about, you have to have the faith that the Lord will take care of you. So unknown to Ambarisha, the Lord actually gave him the Sudarshana Chakra itself was there to protect Ambarisha. And Ambarisha did not know about this. This way, Chakram Bhavan. So you, Lord, you sent your own Sudarshana Chakra to say, Ambarisha, you're so devoted. This Sudarshana Chakra will make sure nothing happens to you. So that itself was protecting Ambarisha. And Ambarisha did not even know about this because he didn't care about any of that. Right? He continued to be just praying. So, Tvat Pritaye Sakalameva Vitanvatosya, Bhaktiyeva Deva. The next word, you can break it, Nachirat Abrita, if you want to. Nachirat Abritaha is there, put a F, Abrita Prasadam. Yenasya Yachanamritepya Bhirakshanartham. That's one word. Yachanamritepya Bhirakshanartham, Chakram Bhavan Pravitatara Sahasra Dharam. So the Chakram Sudarsha Chakra has like 1,000 points to it. So that's why it's a Sahasra Dharam. Tvatpritahe Sakalameva Vitanvatosya Bhaktiva Deva Nachirada Britaf Prasadam Yenasya Yachanamritepya Bhirakshanartham Chakram Bhavan Pravitatara Sahasra Dharam.
Tvatpritaye sakalameva vitanvatosya bhaktaiva deva nachirat abhetya prasadam.
Abrita.
Abrita.
Yeah.
Thank you. Abrita prasadam yenasya yachanamritepya bhirakshanartham yenasya yachanamritepirakshanartham chakram bhavan pravitatara sahasradharam Tvatpritaye sagalameva vitanvatosya bhaktaiva deva nachirat abrita prasadam yenasya yachanamritepya bhirakshanartham chakram bhavan pravitatara sahasratharam.
त्वत्प्रीतये सकलमेव वितन्वतोऽस्य भक्त्यैव देव न चिरात् अपृताः प्रसादं येनास्य याचनमृतेऽप्य प्रक्षणार्थं चक्रं भवान् प्रविततार सहस्रतारम्.
A third line, Viji. Yachanamritepya Bhirakshanartham.
Bhirakshanartham. Okay. येनास्य याचनपृतये पिरक्षणार्थं चक्रं भवान् प्रविततार सहस्रता. Oh, I lost the line. I lost the tune completely.
Yeah, wait once again.
त्वत्प्रीतये सकलमेव वितन्वतोऽस्य भक्त्यैव देव न चिरात् अपृताः प्रसादं येनास्य याचनमृतेऽप्य विरक्षणार्थं चक्रं भवान् प्रविततार सहस्रतारम्.
Answer 3. Sadhvadashi Vratamatho Bhavadarchanartham Varsham Dhadho Madhuvane Yamunopakanthe Patnyasamam Sumanasa Mahatim Bitanvan Pujam Dvijeshu Bisujan Pashushashti Kotim. So maybe a lot of you are observing the Ekadashi fast, right, which comes every month. So this Ekadashi is actually a 3-day thing, event that happens, because what happens is that on Dashami, on the 10th day evening itself, you start the fast, and then all day Ekadashi you do the fast. On Dwadashi day, when the Tithi gets over, you then break the fast, right? So the ritual of breaking the fast is called as a Parana. That's a time when you break the fast of Ekadashi when it starts in Dwadashi. Right? So now it's sometimes like with this Ambarisha had a wife who was equally as devoted, right? So what they both did was they both observed this Ekadashi fast for 1 year, which means that for the whole year, every time there was an Ekadashi, they observed the fast. right? And then right at the time of Dwadashi, when the Parana comes, they used to break the fast. Now, it's the reason they are saying it is important, right? Because imagine if one person in the house is observing, other person in the house is not observing, then it becomes very complicated, right? Then the person has to cook twice, which is not going to happen. So they'll only cook one, or the other person has to adjust. Anyway, in Ambarisha's case, he didn't have that problem. Both he and his wife were following the fast. So they were doing it for 1 full year. And so because he completed that 1 year of Ekadashi fast, then to kind of finish the 1 year mark of it, he and his wife went to Madhuvana, went to Vrindavanam in the banks of Yamuna, and then they were going to be finishing up that 1 year completion of the Ekadashi, Dwadashi Muhurtam there. So at that time, he had actually called a lot of Brahmins and people, and then he gave them all lots of cows, lot of dhanam he was giving, because he had completed it for 1 year and he was kind of wrapping it up. So, sa dwadashi bratamato bhavadarchanartham, varsham dhadau madhuvane yamunopakanthe patnya samam sumanasa mahatim bitanvanne, pujam dvijeshu visrujan pashu shashti kotim. She's saying 60 crores cows he's giving as dhanam, right, to the Brahmins. And dvijeshu, dvija means one who's twice born, which is referring to Brahmins. Sadwadashi Bratamato Bhavadarchanartham Varsham Dadhau Madhuvane Yamunopakanthe Patnya Samam Sumanasa Mahatim Bitanvanne Pujam Dvijeshu Visrujan Pashushashti Kotim.
Sada Dwadashi Vradamat.
So go ahead.
Sada Dwadashi Vradamato Bhavadarchanartam Varsham Dadau Madhuvane Yamunopakanthe Patnyasamam Sumanasa Mahatim Vidanvan Pujam Dvijeshu Visrajan Pashushashti Kodim. Sa Dwadashi Vradamato Bhavadarchanartam Varsham Dadau Madhuvane Yamunopakanthe Patnyasamam Sumanasa Mahatim Vidanvan Pujam Dvijeshu Visrajan Pashushashti Kotim.
Satvadashi Vritamato Pavadarshanaartam Varsham Tatau Madhuvane Yamunopakante Patnyasamam Sumanasa Mahatim Vidanvan Pujam Tvideshu Visrujan Pasusashti Kotim.
Vijay, in the first line, Vratamato.
Vratamato, okay. Satvadashi Vratamato Pavadarshanaartam Varsham Tatau Madhuvane Yamunopakante Patnyasamam Sumanasa Mahatim Vidanvan Pujam Tvideshu Visrujan Pasusashti Kotim.
That's a 4. Tatra taparanadine bhavadarchanante durvasasasya munina bhavanam prapede bhoktum vritascha sanrupena parartishilo mandam jagama yamunam niyaman vidhasyan. So once he gave all the 60 crores cows to all the Brahmins, and then he made sure everybody first eats, right? Because they're all his guests, right? So he first made sure everybody eats. And then finally the Parana time comes, which is the time to break the fast on Dwadashi day. So when the time to break the fast comes, then he then takes all their blessings, and then he and his wife were about to break their fast. At the time, suddenly some uninvited guest comes. So Durvasa comes along with this thing. Now, same thing, like if you remember Mahabharata also, Durvasa comes, right? When Pandavas are there, and after Draupadi has finished eating the Akshaya Patra, Durvasa comes with 10,000 of his attendants. Right? Similarly, Durvasa is coming here. So the king Ambarisha is very happy, right? Because it's a great saint like Durvasa has come on this special day when he's completing the fast. So of course he welcomes Durvasa. And then he tells him that, to please also eat, right? And because that way Ambarisha can then finish his fast. But like exactly how Durvasa did there with the Pandavas, or which he's going to do with the Pandavas, because this is happening before then, he says, okay, let me just go to the river because it is that time where I have to perform my, obligatory pujas, right? So he says, I want to go to the river, finish my pujas of worship, and then I'll come back. However, it says mandam jagama. Durvasa is doing it very leisurely in a very calm manner. He's not in any rush. So he then Durvasa very leisurely goes to the Yamuna river to perform his whatever rites that he's doing that day. Tatrata paranadine bhavadarchanante, durvasasasya munina bhavanam prapede bhoktum vritascha sa nripena parartishilo, mandam jagama yamunam niyaman vidhasyan. Tatradaparanadine bhavadarchanante durvasasasya munina bhavanam prapede bhoktum vritascha sanripena parartishilo mandam jagama yamunam niyaman vidhasyan.
तत्राथ पारणदिने भवदर्चनान्ते दुर्वाससास्य मुनिना भवनं प्रपेदे भोक्तुं मृदश्च सनृपेण परार्तिशीलो मन्दं जगामयमुनां नियमान् विदास्यन् तत्राथ पारणदिने भवदर्चनान्ते दुर्वाससास्य मुनिना भवनं प्रपेदे भोक्तुं मृदश्च सनृपेण परार्तिशीलो मन्दं जगाम यमुनां नियमान् विधास्यन्.
तत्रातपारणदिने भवदार्चनान्ते दुर्वाससास्य मुनिना भवनं प्रपेते भोक्तुं वृतस्य सनृपेण प्रार्तिचीलो मन्तं जगाम यमुनां नियमान् वितास्यन्.
Third line, last word, parartishilo.
Parartishilo. Okay. तत्रादपारणदिने भवदर्शनान्ते दुर्वाससास्य मुनिना भवनं प्रभेते भोक्तुं वृदस्य सनृपेण परार्तिचीलो मन्तं जगाम यमुनां नियमान् विदास्यन्.
Answer right? Maybe we'll stop after 5. Ragyata muhurta samapti khedat varaiva makari bhavat parena prapto munistadata divya drisha vijanan kshipyan krudodhrita jato vitatana krityam. So finally the time now comes for Ambarisha to break his fast, which has been, he's been consistently doing it for 1 year. Now this is the last time of the year, but Durvasa has not come back. So till Durvasa comes back and he gives something, Ambarisha cannot eat. So now only one muhurta was left, which is 48 minutes was left, by which Ambarisha has to break the fast. So the king is like, asking all his advisors, right? Saying, what, it is against the law, it's disrespectful behavior, right? To then invite a Brahmana, but then eating before that Brahmana eats, especially when you are told them you're going to give them food and they said, I'm going to be back, right? So you cannot do that, right? So that is a bad. At the same time, he says, I've been following this for 1 year religiously. Now, the last time when I'm doing it, it looks like I'm not going to be able to complete the fast on the right time in the Parana. So he's kind of lost. He doesn't know what to do. So then his, his advisors tell him, Ambarisha, what you can do is you can take a few drops of tulasi water, because by taking a few drops of tulasi water, technically you've finished the fast, because that is, you're finishing the fast and you're now eating something. At the same time, you're not eating, right? You're waiting for the guest to Durvasas to come back. He says this is the right mix that you can actually do. So Ambarisha says, I have no choice because Durvasa has not come back. So he and his wife take a few drops of tulasi water to end the fast. Right when he finishes doing that, of course, the Durvasa then comes. And Durvasa can see what has happened. So Durvasa then tells Ambarisha, you invited me as a guest, and however, you did not even wait for me, because Durvasa can also say that by drinking the tulasi water, you are eating. That's also considered like breaking the fast and consuming something, right? He says, you couldn't even wait for me. So Durvasa, in his natural tendency, gets very angry. So just like how Shiva plugged his hair, and during when Sati was that thing happened. Similarly, Durvasa from his hair, he then plucks, and then a Kritya comes out. Kritya is like an evil spirit. So he then sends out this evil spirit towards Ambarisha. So Rajñata Parana Muhurta Samapti Kedat. Put the it at the end of that line, comma. Next line you have Dwa, that becomes Va. Vareva Paranam Akari Bhavat Parena Prapto Munis Tadata Divya Drisha Vijanan, comma. Kshipyan Krudot Dhrita Jato Vitatana Krityam. Rajñata Parana Muhurta Samapi Khedate Vareva Paranamakari Bhavat Parena Prapto Munistadata Divya Drisha Vijanan Kshipyan Krudodhrita Jato Vitatana Krityam.
Rajñath Parana Muhurta Samapti Khedad Paraiva Paranamakari Bhavat Parena Prapto Munistadata Divyadrisha Vijanan Kshipyan Krudodhyata Jato Vitatana Krityam.
Last line, Krudot Dhrita Jato.
Thank you. Kruddo Dhrita Jato. Thank you.
Dhrita.
Dhrita. Okay. Rajñata Parana Muhurta Samapti Khedad Paraiva Paranamakari Bhavat Parena Prapto Munistata Divyadrisha Vijanan Kshipyan Krudo Dhrita Jado Vitatana Krityam.
राज्ञादपारण मुहूर्त समाप्ति केदात् वारैव पारण महारि भवत्परेण प्राप्तो मुनिस्ततत दिव्य दृशा विजानन् क्षिप्यन् कृदोत्तृत जडो विदतान कृद्याम् राज्ञादपारण मुहूर्त समाप्ति केदात् वारैव पारण महारि भवत्परेण प्राप्तो मुनिस्ततत दिव्यदृशा विजानन् क्षिप्यन् कृदोत्तृत जडो विदतान कृद्याम्.
Okay, so like they do in all these soaps, you end up you stop today's thing at the right time, and the Kritya comes to attack Ambarisha, and then we'll see what happens in the next class. Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Sandhanandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam kaladeshavadebhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashatasahasrena nirbhasyamanam aspashtam drishtamatre punarurupurusharthatmakam brahmatattvam tattavat bhati sakshat guru pavanapure hanta bhagyam jananam कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Bye, everyone.